I have finally read all of R.F Kuang's books, so let's get into my ranking. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. So that is going to be the one R.F Kuang book I actually don't own, mostly because while I did really enjoy it, I don't see myself really wanting to reread it, and that is Yellowface. Now, Yellowface is a scathing critique of the publishing industry, and it's one of the few R.F Kuang books that is told through the eyes of a white person. And by few, I mean the only book. June, who is our main character, steals the manuscript of one of her friends when she dies, and takes on a Yellowface in publishing to be more successful in her writing career while also toting Asian stories. I remember listening to this on audiobook and having like a really good time. Like, I hated June, but at the same time, like, it was like a car wreck, and I was like, you know? And while it was like annoying, it was also like, wow, she's totally like put on the cloak of that annoying like Democrat liberal who like pretends that they're all for like the good of others, but they're so absorbed and like their ego is an all-time low. And so really everything that they're doing is incredibly selfish. It is, founded in racism and jealousy. And I loved watching the unraveling of June. Next up is The Poppy War. I absolutely love this book. This was the book that got me into R.F Kuang. And for a debut is absolutely fantastic. However, the whole Poppy War series is like my favorite of all time. And so this is like the lowest of the three books. I think where this one struggles versus the others is we have this time that we spend at this war college, and there's like this abrupt shift into war that kind of is a little clunky and could have been paced out a little bit better. But we really get a good dive into who Rin is during this book, her motivations, some of the anger. I like seeing the school setting as like a vehicle to tell some of the history of the country and like give Rin some of the motivations for why she's so mad, as well as her personal grievances that like really continue to fuel those feelings she has. This book also very much reminded me of some of like the earlier moments in like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where you have this like incredibly like strong shamanic like power that is being learned through like this old wizened man who's a little kooky, and it was really fun to have that kind of like flashback to that feeling, but we very quickly divulge into something a lot darker than the show. Overall, excellent, just not my favorite of her work. Next up, we have a tie between these two. Starting off with Catabasis. I have a special place in my heart for anything that like really sums up what it feels like to be in academia as someone who is an academic. And while this is like touted as a dark academia, it's not dark in the way we usually associate with the genre, being like some sort of supernatural or cult secret society. Rather, it is just peeling back the curtain to show you what is in fact dark about actual academia. And on top of that, this book was hilarious. A lot of the humor is definitely like pinpointed to someone who's experienced what it's like to be an academic, and just how pretentious and egotistical some people are can really be hilarious and make this a very good time. While I had a fantastic time reading this and I liked the overall arc of the story, I did think it had like a little bit of a plotting issue. Near the end, we feel very rushed through the last courts of hell, and I feel like our character Alice could have gotten a better redemption arc that involved her like having a moment with another female character, perhaps apologizing to others that she had stepped on her way up through the academic world, and we don't really get that. But overall, a fantastic book. Now, The Burning God, one of my favorite books of all time, is absolutely fantastic, but I feel like unlike the other two in the series, it's a little slow through the middle. I will say this book devastated me. I cried as is every book left on this list, did make me cry. I love seeing like all of like the lore and mythos she brings to the world by talking about the triad a lot in this book and seeing how that parallels to our three main characters that we followed throughout the trilogy. Now, Babel is what Catabasis isn't. It's a absolutely gritty critique of the colonial empire and its marriage to academia. This book also made me cry, and I think that the way that it goes about tackling academia is also smart, in the same way that Kuang uses Alice as like a vehicle to understand like the like I'm not like other girls and like the internalized misogyny. She uses Robin to show like how the opposite gender really doesn't understand what like womanhood is, especially in an academic setting, and like the advantage it brings. This really brings about the conversation of intersectionality, because you have Robin, who was taken from his homeland as a young child and is raised by a white man instead, and really is dealing with the loss of his culture and his family, and how he's treated differently for the color of his skin, and how he even notices he gets slightly better treatment because he's kind of white passing compared to his two friends. I love the ending of this book and what it says about rebellion and standing up for your beliefs. I think that often we think that this peaceful ideation is how we tackle these very big world problems. And I like to see Kuang once more go after the problem with a level of violence, because the system itself enacts a lot of violence against a lot of different peoples, whether that be because you're queer, because of the color of your skin, you know. And so I really liked to see that this book did not shy away from that. And number one overall is Dragon Republic. I sobbed when reading this book. It's heavily annotated. I have quoted and wrote all over this thing. And I think what I love about this one the most is you see Rin try to figure out how conformity could give her power, right? And she really struggles with that. That's what she wants more than anything, is to be powerful, so that the bad things that have happened to her never happen to her again. And you see that she thinks this proximity to whiteness and this republic is going to save her. However, through the course of this book, that is actively destroyed in her viewpoint. She can't escape the fact that proximity to this thing will not save her, and only she can save herself. I thought this was utterly brutal, and watching how Nezha has to rectify the things that are going on in his own life and the amount that he has pushed down in order to like be okay with this world he is really interesting. We also see Katai, who has, oh, hello. We also see Katai, who has, you know, gotten very angry at Rin for the way that she went about things at the end of book one, and how he's had to like sit in that grief and try to like understand her, even though he doesn't want to, and he doesn't love who she is, and he decides to be kind of like her moral compass from here on out. I think their friendship is the reason why this series is my favorite of all of Kuang's works, and truly like one of the most beautiful like descriptions of any type of love I've ever read. You okay? Hi everyone. Meet Ralph. This is Ralph. Anyways, that's my ranking of R.F Kuang's works, and let me know how my ranking compares to yours. And if you have some things flip-flopped around, let me know why. She's by far my favorite author, and so I would love to get into conversations about what her work means to you and why something for you is better or worse than my list.